Welcome back. Welcome back. It is the Thursday night preview show as we have another great game scheduled, folks. The Washington Commanders at the Chicago Bears. Man, these Thursday night games get better and better each week. We have gone from no offense to two teams that are different. Like I feel like last week with the Colts and Broncos.
That's right. Yeah.
The teams were very similar, right?
Both struggling, both
the strengths, kind of the defense, but the offense can't do anything. At least these two teams, like, they kind of have different kinds of struggles.
This is head to head, I'd say, right?
Yeah. Like the Commanders' offense moves the football, but they really just like have it. Key moments is probably their biggest issue, right?
Right.
Maybe you could argue
big
defense.
mistakes, multiple mistakes in key situations.
And the Bears, they don't even try to throw anymore. It's just. They've abandoned the passing game. It's abandoned.
I think Fields had more passing yards last week than he did all season so far, which was welcome less than 200. Less than 200. Yeah.
It should be an exciting game. The line set at -1 or -1 for the Commanders, which is
basically a pick 'em, right? Yeah, it's basically a pick 'em.
But at least they normally just give the home team points here, but they're not doing that.
-3 is the standard. If you're the home team, -3 is the starting point.
Yeah.
So the fact that this game is only -1 and it's in favor of Washington tells you that they expect Washington to win, and Chicago home field advantage is kind of nullified there.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I'm actually with them on this one with Vegas. I think Washington finds a way to win this game because. Just looking at the rosters, just looking at the players, Washington is the better team. And I've said this before, but their defense has the names. They've just got to play up to it. And their coach has the ability to get that out of them. We just haven't seen it yet. And if he doesn't, his job might be in jeopardy as well. But the Bears, a growing young team, building momentum. They're 2-3 on the season. They're doing okay. It's a tough matchup to pick. But I am leaning in favor of Washington just because I think they're one or two small mistakes from having 3 wins, right? And if they can stop those mistakes and pick it up on defense, which I believe they're capable of, talent-wise, it's not like they have deficiencies and just can't do it.
Right.
They have the talent. They just need to get it out of them. And against this Bears team, that's a good team to do it against and reach your goal.
So for the Commanders, starting there, it really is all on the quarterback. That's really what they missed last year. Tyler Heineke played pretty well for them last year. But really, they knew it was a piece. They go out, get Carson Wentz, and we said in the beginning of the season, they're going to ride or die with Carson Wentz, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Ron Rivera, they have a decent defense as far as the roster, but Ron Rivera coaching the defense, you can usually turn out okay. I like their run game with Antonio Gibson. Brian Robinson now back, which I think helps them. Terry McLaurin, receiver, right? They go out get Jahad Dotson. So there's some pieces here, like Logan Thomas at tight end, who's a guy who
J.D. McKissick,
can
right?
kind of hold his own.
Pass catching running back, J.D. McKissick. Right. I mean, he's really good. They have so many good players on this team.
Right. So there's some pieces here, but like you said, it's the key moments, right? They just haven't really capitalized on the moments to win the game. And Carson Wentz has made some boneheaded plays, which we've seen in Indianapolis, but really, and this is what drives me nuts about Carson Wentz, because I've talked about this in the beginning of the season as well, is he should be a good quarterback. They don't make guys 6'5" and 240, 230. They don't make guys like that. You see his athleticism on the field. He seems like a sharp guy, as far as processing plays and things like that. But just the decision-making or trying to do too much is what it seems like. It just kills him, and it kills every team that he goes with. And coaches never defend the guy. They never say, yeah, but we're working on it. They call him out. It's week 5, and the coach called him out already.
Yeah, he said, what's the weakness on the team? Quarterback.
Play. It's like this is now the 3rd team where you've heard stuff like this. So you're like, really, what is going on with him? But real quick, though, they're 10th in the league in passing yards. They've been putting up a lot of points. Maybe because they're down. They're 6th in the league in passing touchdowns.
Again, that a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that they've been behind in a lot of games. But you're right that if you just looked at the stat line, you'd wonder, Carson Wentz had 350 yards. Wow, he must have had a good game. But he had 2 interceptions to go with 2 touchdowns. And those 2 interceptions were on key drives where they needed points, and it allowed the other team to get an easy touchdown or be in scoring range when they got the ball. Right? Those are huge moments. Those are big mistakes. Same thing when you miss an easy 3rd and 2 at the beginning of the game, and then you're driving down the field down by 14 at the end of the game to score a touchdown. You've already lost because you missed that 3rd and 2, and it's a tough situation to be in. But I do think that all of that karma that we're talking about in those players, it's going to come together for them for a few games this season. I still had them on the under for wins this season, but 1-4 is not where I thought they'd be at this point, and they're a better team than that. They're better at production than that, and I think you could say the opposite for the Bears, right? They're 2-3, and they're worse than that. They are not a 2-3 statistical team. Mm-hmm. They've been playing good defense, not great. They've been playing okay on offense, but really it's the run game. And now they have David Montgomery back, which has given them a boost. But Fields, you're going to have to do more passing the ball in today's NFL. I know we've said that before on the show, but yeah, that's where I see the Bears at this point. Right. They're behind the Commanders, roster-wise, play-wise, at this point in the season.
Yeah, the Bears, we all know about their passing woes, dead last in the league in passing. Like I said, abandoned. When you throw the ball 9 times a game, you're not going to get a lot of yardage, right? But really, they've committed 100% to the run with Justin Fields, run with Montgomery. But I know they have tried to pass it more, but still, it's just not turning into wins for them. But they have won 2 games, but they're currently fifth in rushing yards on the season. It's probably where you expect them to be. Big thing, though, is 12 fumbles. Yeah. Only behind the Colts on that. Right, so that's
sloppy ball play. That's never going to win your games. That's always going to be a downfall to any team.
Yeah, that's huge for them. So, looks for who gets the opportunity in this. Both teams make mistakes, right? So you could look at it that way. There's going to be a lot of them, especially on a Thursday night, a short week. Going to be lots of mistakes, in my opinion. Commanders, they're 3rd in interceptions with 6 on the season. They're 3rd in sacks allowed with 20 already.
Wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a big step. Right, so you could see it going both ways. The Commanders are going to get sacked, but they have more of an ability to make a big play, at least in the passing game, right? So, which is where we think of, big plays being made, especially in tight games at the end of a game. You can't be running out the clock at the end of the game in a tie game where you're trying to score to win. And I think, again, that is where I'm giving the edge to the Commanders. That is why everything that we've said to this point is leaning me toward the Commanders, and that's why I'm picking them to win the game and against the spread, which is only -1, basically pick them. As far as the over-under, I was going back and forth on this game because I could see a 21-20 game, and that is 41, right? So I think that leans me toward the over, and this 38 is a little low for me, even with 2 bad teams like we've been talking about up until this point. I'm taking the over.
Yeah, I like to go. I'm going to go under here. It's a Thursday night game. It's going to be sloppy. Chicago's averaging 17 points a game. So because of the short week and everyone's kind of tired, you expect the below average, right? I think that's a fair assumption.
Fair assessment, yeah.
The Commanders, 26 and points per game at 18. So again, I expect below average because it's Thursday night. So I take the under on 38 for that one. But another big thing is the Commanders are dead last in the league in scoring percentage, meaning the amount of drives you have, how many of them turn into points.
Right.
Only 22% for the Commanders.
You have
dead last.
You have to imagine that is going to come back a little bit, especially in a game like this where your opponent is not one who is, I don't know, do you have in front of you how good the Bears are, at defending red zone or anything like that? Because scoring-wise, I do expect that is going to work out a little higher, at least. Nobody's going to end up that low on the season unless you have some serious problems. But I do think that'll work its way up a little more toward that 35%. And this is the game to kind of give it that boost.
Yeah, I don't have anything for Bears defense in the red zone. But, the Bears are 58% in the red zone. You'd have to look that up on.
Yeah, I'll try it.
But it's just expects low scoring for sure. While you're looking that up, though, we got to get into what's going on with Justin Fields here. Like, is he the guy? Drafted him 10th overall. Expect him to kind of, take over the team, but like now you've really abandoned the passing game until recently. It makes you wonder, like, are they giving up on him?
I don't think so. I think they realize the situation they're in right now, right? I think that the situation they're in is they have good running backs, and nobody, Joe Schmo football fan, can't name a receiver for this team, right? I mean, you and I can, but we study these rosters, right? And we knew that coming into the season. So the fact that you have 0 wide receivers means you can't throw the ball, right? And you have nobody to throw the ball to. And most good quarterbacks have 1 or 2 names at receiver who are at least decent. You don't need a superstar. If you do have a superstar wide receiver, that certainly boosts your quarterback. But this team, I think, is still a couple of pieces away in that sense at that position. They need to bring in wide receivers to match Justin Fields' ability to throw the ball and to maximize what he is at a quarterback. So I think they're still accepting that this season isn't their season to compete for the division, for playoffs, Super Bowl, whatever, and that they're still setting up what needs to be done. And they've kind of been breaking it down as they started to build it back up, right? Making trades, getting rid of some high-paid players, and now they're building it back up around the pieces that they have, including Justin Fields. So I don't think they're giving up on him. I think they know what they have, and they're going to move forward into next season with him as their quarterback and trying to, again, take that next step. Right. Give him some receivers. Give this poor guy. You can't assess them.
What year was he drafted? Like how many years does he have left on his deal? I guess is the question on his rookie.
It would be technically it depends on if you take the 5th-year option.
Right, and that's probably the better conversation is, do you decline his 5th-year option?
This is his 2nd year, so he would technically have 2 more years in the NFL under contract with the Bears, and then before that 4th year, so by the end of next year, they will have to exercise, or before the start of the season after next year, they will have to exercise that 5th-year option. And I think ultimately that is what they're looking for, right? By the end of next season, if we give him some receivers, we'll know more about what Justin Fields is. Is he just a quarterback who's able to run and kind of average Joe?
Yeah, you certainly can't deny his ability.
Yeah, he has talent.
He's a great running quarterback. I mean, I think he can make all the throws, but I mean,
exactly
something there. Maybe it's receivers. Maybe there's no separation. But he came in kind of raw too, right?
Mm-hmm,
Wasn't really developed with the pro system, so that does take some time. But at this point, you expect it. I would like to see more if I was a Chicago fan for sure.
Absolutely, yeah.
Real quick though, on the Chicago defense, they're giving up 61%.
I did find
touchdowns on red zone. So that's a defensive statistic. So let me read the actual title here: NFL team opponent red zone scoring percentage. 61% is touchdowns only, not counting field goals.
23rd in the NFL, so that's again pretty bad. So that again favors the Commanders if you're looking at it from that standpoint. And I think Washington is actually a little bit higher than them. They're at 15 on this list for giving up points in the red zone here, touchdowns in the red zone. So that and the Bears are certainly more of a kick field goals than score touchdowns team at this point.
But one more stat before we get into the Carson Wentz conversation. The Commanders have only given up 32 yards rushing to opposing quarterbacks. Maybe that's because they haven't played a lot of rushing quarterbacks. So that statistic's really weird, because if you play a bunch of Tom Brady's, you're not going to give up a lot of rushing yards. You know what I mean? But the reason I wanted to bring this up is because the Commanders that's 3rd least yards allowed by a rushing quarterback or quarterback rushing yards. The Bears are 2nd most with 166 on the season. So,
yes, something has to give there. And I think that it'll be somewhere in the middle, right? Is Washington good at stopping quarterback runs? Yes, it appears so. Are they going to stop a dynamic quarterback like Justin Fields from being able to run? Probably not, but they're not going to give up huge plays to the quarterback running the ball. So I still expect Fields to do what he does and rack up a little bit of yardage in the run game. But will it be enough to make a difference? I don't think he's going to, break off some sort of 65-yard run for a touchdown and catch the Commanders off guard, because they're going to be ready for it.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, so then last question. Do you move on from Carson Wentz at this point? From what you've seen in 5 weeks?
Oh, yes.
You're moving on.
I mean, I think yes, exactly. Joe Schmo, third string, Sam Howell, right? Is their fourth string quarterback, young kid, needs a chance. I think they have to go that direction, right? They've got to go young kid at some point.
It might not be at the top of the draft, right?
It might not be next week. It might not be next week. If they get the win this week and Carson Wentz looks like he's leading them to a victory, that kind of resets his clock a little bit, and then they go into next week and the week after. And I think somewhere by mid-season is when you're going to say, okay, this team is not competing right now, and we have nothing to lose, and Carson Wentz isn't our guy moving forward. And he certainly isn't. If they're still not competing, they brought in Carson Wentz to win now, to compete now. And if they're not doing that, then Carson Wentz is useless to them, and they need to do something to show development on this team. Why not start the rookie? And that's when I think that conversation will come back, and he will be a starter. Or they'll pick up somebody else to give a chance, to see what he's got.
If they do have a top 10 pick, a lot of good quarterbacks coming into the draft at this point, way too early, but they're ranked high. They do fluctuate by the end of the season. But if you're Washington, I think calling out the quarterback at week 5 is telling you one of two things. One is you're trying to motivate the guy to play better, whatever that means, right? And Carson Wentz is kind of a mystery. It's like, do they call a play and he doesn't throw it to the primary receiver, he throws it to somebody else? There's something going on there, it seems like, between Frank Reich and now, Ron Rivera. That's what I'm picking up on. But do you move on with him because of that? Or the other thing of, calling out your quarterback this early is you're just done. Mm-hmm. We're done with you. Yeah. If it is the later, if they're done with him, then I think you see Sam Howell.
Yeah, I think this is both. This is the case where he is trying to motivate his quarterback, but he's also putting him on notice. Hey, we brought you here to win friggin' games and play better than you are right now. And if you don't do that for us, we have no choice but to move on from you. Don't look at me, the coach. This is on you. It's in your hands. The ball is in your court. You play better, or we have no choice but to move on. So I think that's what Ron Rivera is doing. Was it the choice strategy of most coaches? Probably not. Rare that coaches would call out their quarterback and say, hey, you got to play better. But in this case,
it's just so early. Yeah. It's crazy. And he's under contract until 2024, but there is an out at the end of the season.
Right. And they did that for this exact reason, right? And although we did not have high expectations, neither one of us picked the Commanders to make the playoffs, right? The team did, right? They felt like they were a quarterback away from winning more games and getting to the playoffs. And they felt like that quarterback was Carson Wentz to carry them a little bit further this year. And I just don't think it is.
Wild. So I at this point expect him to hit free agency. And I think they draft a guy. They're 1-4. If they win some games later and the draft position goes up,
sure.
Maybe you reconsider. But at this point, I think Carson Wentz hits free agency again and rinse repeat, right? He'll get another $20 million to play for, the Houston Texans or something like that, right? Bottom feeder. Somebody who misses out in the draft, it seems like.
No, I don't think Carson Wentz gets another chance as a starter. He's had 3. If he blows this one, somebody will sign him, maybe as a backup, as a comfortable backup. Okay, this guy has veteran experience, and we need somebody behind our young guy who can mentor him or whatever. I also don't know that I want Carson Wentz as a mentor based on the history that he has. So I do think that he'll have a job, but it's not going to be a starter job that is handed to him.
I think if he becomes a backup, he'll be the best backup in the league. Right now, Carolina, Carson Wentz would be the best option for Carolina right now.
That's absolutely true, but they should have drafted a young quarterback and not gone with freaking Sam Darnold or Sam Darnold last year, and then Baker Mayfield this year. I mean, neither one of those was good options for them. Right. They took a flyer on Sam Darnold. They chose to go with Baker Mayfield. Terrible decision.
Right.
And it's led downhill. But I agree. If they had a Carson Wentz, they'd be in a better position right now as a backup. But they don't. So maybe next year Carson Wentz will be a backup behind a young quarterback who is out there. And that's probably where I see his career going at this point.
Yep, crazy to see, but that's just where they're at. I'm taking Washington. Even at Chicago, in this NFL, you got to be able to pass the ball. The Commanders can at least do that. There will be turnovers, but I like Washington. Carson Wentz is the better option than Justin Fields right now. Chicago would be better with Carson Wentz.
And really, as much as we are dogging this game as a bad game, quote unquote, to watch, it's going to be competitive. At least there's that, right? Like, we don't know who's going to win this one. You
could argue that last
week's was competitive. I expect a little more points on the board in this one, and a little more excitement, right? You do have Justin Fields, who's exciting to watch. You do have some playmakers that we talked about on Washington. So the entertainment value will be higher for this game. The competition will be closer for this game. Well, I mean, it was close, like you said last week, but entertainment value is better overall, for sure.
For sure.
Even though it's not a marquee game by any means, and it's not bringing in the casual football fan. But for those of us who like to watch football, there will be a lot to see in this game, at least, I think.
Yep. So I take Washington, take the under. Let's go.
Yeah, and you know what happens on Thursday night. I'm a perfect 5-0, and I'm taking Washington. So let's hope we continue that and go
Don't break
6.
the streak.
That's right. We got to go 6-0.
Weird to think about something we didn't mention. Chicago could rally here to get back to 500. A 500 Chicago through 6 weeks would be pretty interesting.
And that is very much on the table right now.
For sure. All right. Thank you for tuning in to our Thursday night preview. See you next week. And be sure to check out the NFL preview show for all the other games on Sunday right here on the Hoof Podcast.
Toss your hat in the ring.